Isn't that the human who botched the neutron star extraction? I wouldn't trust him to fetch my nutrient paste, let alone lead a bio unit. The sneers cut through the cacophony of the mess hall on the interstellar military outpost. Jax Darian, his back to the jeering faces, just kept stirring his synthetic rations. He'd learned to ignore the whispers, the snickers, the open contempt. But the taunts kept coming, sharp as energy blades. He froze. 3 units vaporized because he went stiff as a dead star. My buddy from the Volcanid Legion says command keeps him around out of pity. Jax's knuckles whitened around his spoon. He could feel their eyes on him. A dozen alien species. Cathar, Krill, Xylar, their xenophobic disdain, a palpable weight. Pity, he scoffed inwardly. They knew nothing. The insults, however, didn't stop even when he quietly rolled up his sleeve. A strange emblem, carved in black ink, peeked through the grime on his arm. Geometric patterns twisting around what looked like a stylized, angular nova burst. For a split second, the room, usually buzzing with the metallic rasp of Krill laughter and the low thrum of Cathar gossip, fell silent. Then, a towering arachnoid general, Katark, of the 8th Fleet, whose segmented limbs usually moved with chilling grace, suddenly froze. His voice, a low guttural thrum of pheromones and clicks, cut through the sudden hush, raw with an unexpected command. Where did you get that symbol? Have you ever seen silence fall faster than words? What happened next was a ripple through the very fabric of the outpost, a shockwave that threatened to unravel 2 cycles of carefully constructed lies. The interstellar military outpost, a jagged scar of metal and light on the desolate expanse of the frontier, hummed with the constant drone of warp drives and the chatter of a dozen alien languages. Morning drills echoed across barracks where rumors, like solar flares, spread faster than light, and today's target was Specialist Jax Darian, a human male, 29 cycles old. Shoulders squared despite the crushing weight of accusation, he moved through the outpost like a phantom, haunting his own existence. The whispers followed him everywhere. Corridors, mess halls, training grounds, always the same story, twisted and retold until truth became unrecognizable. Heard he left his unit behind on the neutron star, a young Cathar recruit muttered during morning formation. Lost 3 bio units because he froze up. My buddy from the Volcanid Legion said he's been demoted twice. Command keeps him around out of pity. The lies had momentum now, rolling downhill like an asteroid avalanche, each retelling adding new details, fresh humiliation. The truth, locked away in classified data vaults nobody could access, became irrelevant. Physical training started at X100. Zero-G obstacle courses, simulated combat drills, endurance runs across artificial gravity fields. Jax performed each exercise with mechanical precision, but the pack always kept its distance. Invisible barriers, constructed from whispered accusations and manufactured disgrace. Need help with that gravity coil, human? A Krill sergeant called out as Jax prepared for his climb. Wouldn't want you freezing up again. Laughter rippled through the formation. Not cruel exactly, but casual, the worst kind of dismissal. He'd become entertainment, a cautionary tale told through smirks and sideways glances. Jax said nothing, never did anymore. Words had failed him during the investigation, twisted into evidence of incompetence. Silence had become armor, though it offered little protection against the constant barrage of judgment. During equipment inspection, he removed his outer combat tunic to check gear placement. The movement was routine, automatic, until someone noticed. What's that on your arm, human? A xyloid grunt squinted at the exposed skin. A tattoo, black ink forming an intricate symbol, partially hidden by dirt and sweat. Geometric patterns surrounding what looked like a stylized, angular nova burst. Military precision carved into flesh. The xyloid fumbled for his comm unit, snapping a quick hollow image before Jax could cover it up. Within minutes, the image was circulating through commnets in deep space forums, another piece of evidence in the court of barracks opinion. Lieutenant Vera Ron, barely 25 cycles and eager to prove herself, caught sight of the symbol during the inspection. Something about it felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. Ancient star charts and classified iconography weren't her specialty, and asking questions might reveal her ignorance. Interesting artwork, Specialist, she said carefully. Personal meaning? Jax's eyes met hers briefly, the first direct contact he'd made with anyone in cycles. Something like that, ma'am. His voice carried no emotion, no explanation, just acknowledgement and withdrawal. Ron nodded awkwardly and moved on, but the image lingered. She'd seen that symbol somewhere before. Something important. Something classified. The morning continued its routine humiliation. Nutrient paste packs accidentally dropped in his direction during breaks. Exclusion from group discussions about leave to celestial resorts. The subtle but constant reminder that he no longer belonged among soldiers who trusted each other with their lives. During mess hall duty, he sat alone at a corner replicator, methodically eating synthesized rations while conversations flowed around him. The isolation was complete now, physical, social, professional. 2 cycles of distinguished service erased by whispered lies and bureaucratic indifference. His comm unit buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw your ink online. Interesting choice. He deleted the message without responding. The tattoo had been meant as a reminder, not a revelation. Some secrets were designed to stay buried, even when the burial threatened to bury their keeper. But secrets have a way of surfacing when least expected, and sometimes the right entity recognizes what others overlook. If you believe stories like this deserve to be seen, subscribe to Alien Whispers. The past lived in encrypted data vaults that ordinary soldiers couldn't access. But Jax Darian wasn't ordinary. He just couldn't prove it anymore. 18 cycles earlier, he'd carried a different designation, a different identity. Operation Alpha Omega extraction had required complete erasure of official records, transformation into someone who didn't exist on any manifest. Tier 6 operations demanded such sacrifices. The neutron star Xylos 7, a celestial body so volatile that sector maps marked it in pulsating red, was slated for cataclysmic implosion. 7 operatives went in to extract a sentient entity whose very existence threatened 3 galactic federations. Intelligence suggested the mission was suicide disguised as strategy, but someone had to try. His team had been handpicked from special operations units across different species. No official documentation, no backup support, no rescue protocols. If they failed, they'd simply vanish, designations scrubbed from records. Families told they died in training accidents. The insertion had gone perfectly. 12 standard cycles of infiltration through gravitational anomalies in surveillance grids. They had reached the target facility as planned, extracted the entity without detection. Textbook execution. Then the ambush hit. Enemy forces had been waiting, too organized, too well positioned to be coincidental. Someone had leaked their route, their timing, their objectives. The extraction became a massacre. In seconds, 6 operatives died in the first 30 heartbeats. Jax and the entity, a crystalline consciousness known as the Lumina, whose energy signature could destabilize entire star systems, found themselves pinned behind collapsing neutronium shielding while particle weapons shredded everything around them. He'd had 2 choices: abandon the mission and save himself, or complete the extraction against impossible odds. He chose impossibility. 3 standard cycles of brutal zero-G combat, moving between shattered modules, using plasma bursts and debris for cover. His human strength and agility pushed beyond limits, carrying the Lumina, whose crystalline structure was fracturing under enemy bombardment. His comm unit was destroyed, his auxiliary weaponry lost, his chances of survival approaching 0. But he'd gotten it out, delivered it to the secondary extraction point where a stealth shuttle waited. He watched the Lumina lift off into the void while he provided covering fire from a collapsing platform under enemy bombardment. The shuttle couldn't return for him. Too much heat, too much risk. He'd understood, even given the order himself. Some missions require acceptable losses. Except he hadn't been lost. 4 standard cycles later, he'd walked across the border of the hostile sector into friendly territory. Dehydrated, wounded, but alive. The debriefing lasted 6 cycles, every detail recorded, analyzed, classified at the highest levels. Then came the bureaucratic nightmare. Operation Alpha Omega extraction had never officially existed. The Lumina they'd rescued couldn't be publicly acknowledged. The operatives who died couldn't be properly honored. And Jax's heroism couldn't be recognized without revealing intergalactic state secrets. Instead, he'd been reassigned to this interstellar military outpost with a manufactured disciplinary record. Tactical errors resulting in unit casualties. Enough truth to be plausible, enough lies to destroy his reputation. Now he calibrated energy conduits and organized supply caches while soldiers who'd never seen live combat questioned his competence. The irony was suffocating, punished for success that couldn't be revealed, degraded for saving entities that couldn't be acknowledged. In the supply warehouse, he discovered an old star chart collection scheduled for disposal. Military cartography from various operations, most outdated and declassified. But one chart made him pause. Grid coordinates marked with symbols that matched his tattoo. The same geometric patterns, the same angular nova burst. Operational markers from missions that officially never happened. He photographed the map, sent it to a secure frequency from memory. "They still don't recognize the emblem," he typed. "How long do I wait?" The response came quickly. "Patience. Truth has momentum. Let it build." But patience was becoming expensive. Each cycle brought fresh humiliation, new reasons for decent soldiers to doubt his worth. The Whisper campaign had evolved into accepted fact. He was damaged goods, a cautionary tale about what happened when soldiers cracked under pressure. That afternoon, a group of young Xylar privates had followed him into the warehouse with comm units recording, making data logs at his expense. "Hey, human failure," one called. "Show us how you abandoned your squad again." They knocked over supply containers, spilled biolubricant on his uniform, laughed as he silently cleaned up their mess. The data logs would be online within hours, tagged with hashtags that would ensure maximum humiliation. Lieutenant Vera Ron watched from the doorway, conflicted. She'd received orders not to interfere with disciplinary actions, but this felt wrong, more than wrong, criminal. But speaking up meant career suicide. Questioning popular opinion about Jax Darian was professional death. So she stood silent, watching a soldier endure treatment that violated every principle she'd sworn to uphold. That night, she researched the symbol from his tattoo. Military databases, historical archives, classified reference materials. Her security clearance barely covered it. Hours of searching produced fragments, references to operations that didn't exist, units that had no records, missions accomplished by ghosts. The pieces were starting to connect, but the picture they formed was impossible to believe. Have you ever seen someone judged before they were even heard? Share your memory. Someone here might need to read it. General Orion Thorne's inspection tours were legendary for their unpredictability. 40 cycles of interstellar service had taught him that problems hid in comfortable routines, and comfort was the enemy of readiness. The interstellar military outpost hadn't expected him for another 6 cycles. His unannounced arrival sent the base into controlled chaos, hastily organized formations, rapid equipment checks, desperate attempts to present perfection on zero notice. Jax Darian wasn't invited to participate. Supply personnel rarely appeared in official inspections, especially those with disciplinary problems. He continued his warehouse duties while the rest of the base prepared for scrutiny. But General Thorne didn't inspect according to protocols. He wandered, observed, asked uncomfortable questions. Military experience had taught him that truth lived in shadows, not spotlights. His path through the outpost was random, unscripted, past drone bays and training facilities, through administrative hubs and storage areas. Each stop revealed something new about the outpost's actual condition versus its reported status. The warehouse was supposed to be empty during the inspection. Jax worked alone, organizing supplies for an upcoming training exercise. His movements were efficient, practiced, someone who understood logistics despite his current assignment. General Thorne noticed him through the open bay door. Something about his posture, his precision, caught his attention. Professional soldiers moved differently than clerks playing dress-up. This human carried himself like someone who'd seen real combat. He approached quietly, observing his work. Inventory management wasn't glamorous, but he performed it with the same attention to detail that marked elite operators. Every item properly cataloged, every procedure correctly followed. Then Jax reached for supplies on a high shelf, his sleeve pulling back to reveal the tattoo. Thorne froze. The symbol was unmistakable, geometric patterns surrounding an angular nova burst, rendered in black ink with military precision. He'd seen it before in briefing rooms where even generals needed special clearance. Operations so classified they existed only in whispered conversations and locked data vaults. "Specialist," he called, his voice carrying absolute authority. Jax turned, snapping to attention with reflexes that betrayed his true training. This wasn't warehouse personnel. This was a soldier responding to command presence. Where did you get that emblem? His question cut through 2 cycles of imposed silence. For the first time since his reassignment, Jax looked directly at a superior officer. His voice was steady, certain. Tier 6, Alpha Omega. 7 in, 1 out. The warehouse fell silent. Even the distant sounds of outpost activity seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Thorne's expression shifted from curiosity to recognition, to something approaching awe. He'd read about Alpha Omega in briefings so classified that discussing them outside secured facilities was treason. The mission that had saved the Lumina, whose presence prevented intergalactic war, accomplished by soldiers whose designations couldn't be spoken. Lieutenant Ron, he barked to the young officer who'd been following the inspection tour. Bring me the soldier's file, not the standard personnel record. The Black Archive. Ron stammered acknowledgement and rushed away, mind racing. Black Archive meant intelligence operations, classified missions, the kind of records that normal officers never saw. Word spread through the outpost faster than digital communication. The general had recognized something in the human failures tattoo. Soldiers who'd spent cycles mocking his competence suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere, avoiding potential association with their previous judgments. Within a cycle, Ron returned with a datapad marked with security classifications she'd never seen before. General Thorne read in silence, his expression growing darker with each page. The truth was devastating in its simplicity. Jax Darian was a decorated special operations soldier whose actual service record had been buried to protect intergalactic state secrets. His supposed failure was manufactured cover, designed to explain his reassignment without revealing classified operations. But the cover story had taken on its own life. Officers who should have known better had accepted the lies, perpetuated them, used them to justify treatment that violated every principle of military justice. Specialist Darian, General Thorne's voice carried across the warehouse. Please approach. Jax moved with the controlled precision of someone approaching a superior officer, not the hesitant shuffle of a disgraced soldier. Everything about his bearing screamed confidence, dedication, honor. I owe you an apology, Thorne said, his words carrying to every soldier within earshot. This institution owes you an apology. We failed to protect your designation while you protected our secrets. The crowd of observers, soldiers who'd gathered despite orders to maintain distance, stirred uneasily. Their comfortable assumptions were crumbling in real time, replaced by uncomfortable truths about judgment, prejudice, and the courage required to endure both. Lieutenant Ron stepped forward, her young face flushed with shame. Sir, I witnessed harassment that should have been stopped. I should have investigated, should have questioned. I should have trusted a fellow soldier. All of you should have, Thorne interrupted. Holo videos from the warehouse incident were already circulating online, showing Jax enduring humiliation while officers stood by. The footage was damning, clear evidence of systematic failure to protect one of their own. By evening, the story had exploded across deep space networks. Intergalactic justice advocates, veteran organizations, and civilian supporters demanded accountability. The military's treatment of a decorated hero became a galactic scandal. But for Jax, standing in that warehouse while truth finally emerged from shadows, the vindication felt hollow. His reputation was restored, but the cost, 2 cycles of isolation, humiliation, and silence, couldn't be undone. Some victories came too late to matter. Or perhaps they mattered more because of the delay. The formal ceremony took place 3 stellar weeks later, in a shielded conference room where classified operations were planned and executed. No comm units, no media, no public recognition. Just truth acknowledged in the shadows where it belonged. General Thorne read from official documentation that had been sealed for 2 cycles. Specialist First Class Jax Darian demonstrated exceptional valor during Operation Alpha Omega extraction, directly saving the life of a high-value asset while under enemy fire. His actions prevented intergalactic conflict and upheld the highest traditions of interstellar service. Jax stood at attention, dressed in a perfect uniform despite his reluctance to participate. He'd requested no ceremony, no restored rank, no public vindication. Some wounds healed better without exposure. But the military needed this moment. Institutional failure demanded institutional acknowledgement, even if delivered quietly. Your service record is hereby corrected, Thorne continued. All disciplinary actions are expunged. Your actual decorations are restored, including the Galactic Defense Superior Service Medal and the Bronze Star with Valor device. The medals felt heavy in his hands, not from their weight, but from their piston. 2 cycles of silence, humiliation, and isolation. The price of protecting secrets that others took for granted. Lieutenant Ron had requested permission to speak. Her voice shook as she addressed him directly. Specialist Darian, I witnessed harassment that I should have stopped. I failed my duty as an officer and as a sentient being. I formally apologize and request any disciplinary action you deem appropriate. Jax looked at her, really looked, for the first time since that day in the warehouse. Young, earnest, carrying guilt that would follow her for cycles, learning lessons that would make her a better leader, assuming she didn't let shame destroy her effectiveness. Apology accepted, Lieutenant. Learn from this. Protect soldiers who can't protect themselves. His words carried no anger, no demand for punishment, just weary acceptance and hope that something positive might emerge from institutional failure. The ceremony concluded with orders that surprised everyone. Instead of returning to special operations or transferring to a different outpost, Jax had requested assignment to the Warrior Transition Nexus, helping soldiers recover from physical and psychological wounds sustained in combat. General Thorne had initially resisted. Specialist, your skills are wasted in biosupport. Special Operations Command wants you back immediately. With respect, Sir, Jax replied. I've spent 2 cycles learning what it means to be abandoned by the system. That experience has value. Thorne approved the transfer, recognizing wisdom in his choice. Sometimes the best healers were those who'd survived their own injuries. The public response to his story, leaked despite military attempts at secrecy, was overwhelming. Deep space social media campaigns demanding accountability, intergalactic inquiries into military justice procedures, policy changes designed to prevent similar failures. The Krill sergeant, who'd mocked his gravity coil abilities, sent a handwritten data scroll to his new assignment. His words were carefully chosen, painfully honest. Specialist Darian, I called you a failure when you were actually a hero. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that your story changed how I see courage. Real courage isn't charging into battle. It's enduring injustice while protecting others who can't protect themselves. Thank you for that lesson. Jax didn't respond to the scroll, but he kept it, not as vindication, but as evidence that beings could grow, change, learn from their failures. Hope in written form. The Silent Star Emblem project launched 6 stellar months later, a military-wide initiative to identify and honor soldiers whose service had been classified beyond recognition. Hundreds of cases emerged from shadows, stories of sacrifice hidden by necessity but lost to bureaucracy. Each soldier received their due recognition, their records corrected, their families finally told why their loved ones had disappeared into black operations. Justice delayed but not denied. Jax's tattoo became an unofficial symbol of the project. Military personnel began sharing holo photos of their own classified service markers, unit insignias, commemorative data chips, personal reminders of missions that couldn't be discussed. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. The Interstellar military outpost implemented new policies protecting soldiers under disciplinary review, mandatory training on unconscious bias, and anonymous reporting systems for harassment. Lieutenant Ron, promoted after her honest testimony about institutional failures, became an advocate for military justice reform. Her career recovered and flourished, built on lessons learned from witnessing courage under fire. The transformation wasn't complete or perfect. Institutional change moved slowly, fought against decades of ingrained assumptions. But progress began with recognition, acknowledging that heroes didn't always look like expectations. Some victories were measured in restored reputations. Others were measured in prevented future failures. Both mattered. 1 stellar cycle later, the Darian Legacy Training Program opened at the Special Warfare Command. The course logo featured an angular nova burst rising from geometric patterns, the same symbol that had ended 2 cycles of institutional blindness. Commander Vera Ron, now commanding the Ethics Training Division, addressed the first class of students, young officers from every species, learning lessons that hadn't existed in previous curricula. This course exists because we failed, she began. We failed to recognize excellence disguised as failure. We failed to question convenient assumptions. We failed to protect those who'd already sacrificed everything to protect us. The students, lieutenants and captains mostly, shifted uncomfortably. Military education typically focused on success stories, not institutional failures. This approach was revolutionary and necessary. Specialist First Class Darian chose not to teach this course personally, Commander Ron continued. He said his story matters less than the lesson it teaches. Character isn't revealed in moments of glory. It's forged in moments of abandonment. In a hidden asteroid cluster, far from military outposts and galactic bureaucracy, Jax ran a transition hub for veterans struggling with psychic trauma and readjustment challenges. The facility was small, private, funded by anonymous donations from sources that didn't officially exist. His clients were special operations veterans whose service couldn't be discussed, whose wounds came from missions that remained classified. They found him through networks that operated in shadows, word-of-mouth recommendations from people who understood the cost of serving in darkness. The hub offered no miracle cures or revolutionary treatments, just understanding, acceptance, and practical support from someone who'd survived similar isolation. Sometimes that was enough. A young Circaran female arrived one afternoon, Star Trooper, early 20s, carrying the same haunted expression that Jax recognized in mirrors. Her service record was clean, her references impeccable, but something in her eyes suggested deeper wounds. I heard about your story online, the Circaran said during intake, about how you survived being judged for something people couldn't understand. I think I need that kind of understanding. Jax didn't respond immediately. Instead, he rolled up his sleeve, revealing the tattoo that had started everything, not as boast or proof, but as connection. One survivor acknowledging another. Tell me what you can't tell anyone else, he said. That evening, as cosmic dust settled over the asteroid cluster, Jax sat with other veterans around a plasma fire pit behind the hub. They shared stories that would never appear in official records, acknowledged sacrifices that couldn't be publicly recognized. These conversations happened every night, informal therapy sessions disguised as social gatherings. Veterans who'd served in classified operations, whose heroism remained hidden, whose wounds couldn't be explained to families or friends. They found healing in shared understanding, strength in mutual recognition. The silence that had once isolated them became a bond that connected them. A text arrived on his secure comm unit from an unknown frequency. New case incoming. Sol Marine, 3 deployments to places that don't exist. Story sounds familiar. He typed back quickly. Habitat available. Send coordinates when ready. The hub operated on word-of-mouth referrals and private funding, invisible to galactic databases or official recognition. Like the missions that had created its clients, it existed in shadows, necessary, effective, and deliberately hidden. But its impact spread far beyond the asteroid cluster. Veterans who found healing there returned to their communities stronger, more resilient, better equipped to handle civilian life. Their recovery rippled outward, affecting families, employers, entire support networks. Late that night, after the plasma fire had died to embers and other residents had gone to sleep cycles, Jax walked the perimeter of the property, old habits from military service, checking security and ensuring safety. The vacuum was clean, quiet, free from the constant tension of military outposts. Here he could finally breathe without feeling watched, judged, evaluated against standards designed by beings who'd never faced impossible choices. His comm unit buzzed one final time. A message from General Thorne, now retired but still maintaining contact with soldiers whose stories mattered. Saw the news about your hub. Intergalactic Senate hearing, next cycle about military justice reform. Your testimony could change everything. Jax considered the message for several minutes before responding. I serve better in shadows. Let the reforms speak for themselves. Some victories were public, celebrated, remembered in history books. Others were private, personal, measured in lives quietly saved and dignity silently restored. Both had value. Both mattered. The tattoo on his arm caught starlight, geometric patterns seeming to shift in the darkness, a symbol of sacrifice, endurance, and ultimately triumph. Not over enemies, but over the systems that had failed to recognize his worth. Tomorrow would bring new clients, fresh challenges, different battles against invisible wounds. But tonight, surrounded by the quiet hum of the asteroid cluster and the knowledge that he'd found his true mission, Jax Darian was exactly where he belonged, in the shadows where heroes did their finest work. Where are you watching from? Have you ever seen dignity return in silence? Share your place and moment. We're building a map of quiet victories.